Hello, and a very warm welcome to this Legal 500 Meet the Editors United States webinar. My name is Anna Barwick. I'm the editor of the Legal 500 US Guide. And with me here today is Barnaby Merrill, my deputy editor for the United States. And on top of that, we are also joined by Wasim Hamid, who is Senior Business Development Manager, and Tim Rabouche, who's Senior Key Account Manager. So you'll hear from all of us in this session. Just to give you a rough idea of the agenda, we'll be talking about, well, we'll give you a bit of an overview in general about the Legal 500 and our broader portfolio, and then we'll move quite quickly into submission best practices, what you can do to really make the best submission that you possibly can in order to enter the rankings, give you a bit more information about our research process, research calendar, and also talk a little bit about sort of new practice areas that we might be introducing in the upcoming 2023 guide. We are now a week away from announcing the new guidelines for the 2023 guidelines, hopefully, editions. So hopefully this should prove quite a timely session for you as you get ready to prepare those next submissions. Yes, and then of course, yeah, you as just noted, you'll also hear from Wasim and from Tim, who will be telling you a little bit more about sort of more marketing commercial opportunities in the guide and our Research Plus product. One last note before we delve in is please do use our Q&A function. So there will be a Q&A session at the very end of the webinar. So if you have some questions, you can note them down, or you can also just pop them straight into that Q&A chat. So we will be addressing those at the end. And we would like to make it, you know, interactive in that way. So we will leave some time to get to those. All right, so yes, so talking a little bit, just very quickly about our broader portfolio. You might be hopefully familiar with our Legal 500 rankings and specifically the US guide, but just to give you a sense of that, it's actually just quite a minor part of what we do. So we've been sort of delving into the legal markets for 34 years now. I think it's safe to say that we are the market leading publisher of legal information. We do research and analysis of about 20,000 law firms worldwide in around 120 jurisdictions overall. We have all sorts of different rewards and recognitions apart from the Legal 500 rankings, including the GC Power List, focusing on the in-house market, Legal 500 Awards, Hall of Fame, etc. There's also other magazines that we publish. You've got a list on the slide there. We've got different business development tools. Conrad Now is maybe one that you have been using yourself, but there's also historical data if you want to find out a little bit more about sort of past rankings and so on. And a bunch of new initiatives that we've developed in more recently, like Meet the Team, some state hubs that again, I think Wasim will be addressing a little bit more about that later on. I specifically would like to highlight our podcast because our very own Barnaby is actually responsible for the Legal 500 podcast. So that's a nice one to note. And of course, I would also quite like to plug our global Green Hub and Green Guide, also quite a new product because I'm the editor of the Green Guide as well. So yeah, do go check those out. One last note on this one is maybe also our events, just because that's also kind of a very major part of what the business does these days. I think we host about 150 events globally every year. So yeah, also something to have on your radar. And this can be in all sorts of formats, from roundtables to receptions to dinners to award ceremonies and so on. All right, so who actually uses the Legal 500? Just some quick sort of statistics for you, sort of as evidence that yes, we are truly the world's largest referral platform. We have over 6.1 million unique visits each year, 21.5 million page views over the last 12 months. And then, yeah, you can see a bunch of other data there for you. So it is quite impressive. And I think we really are at the top of our game here. So, all right. Here's some more specifically, so sort of across the board really, but also specifically for the US. We have kind of rising page views as well as unique users really year on year. So they were up by 51% the page views this past year, and up by 96% in terms of the unique users over the past year as well. So again, very good numbers for you there. Okay, so I think without further ado, we'd like to go into a bit more detail about our whole submission process now. So I'll hand over to Barnaby at this point, who's going to tell you a little bit about why should you actually submit.
Thanks, Anna. Hi everyone again. So why should you submit to Legal 500? As Anna's explained so well just now, so we are an essential reference tool that does exist to help businesses choose the right law firm. We are used extensively by in-house counsel, business leaders and law firms. I think some of the stats you saw in the previous slides demonstrate some of the large proportion of major companies, their in-house counsel and executives do use us to try and find the right lawyers. Over 5.9 million users annually, which is more than 2 times more than our nearest rival. We've got a comprehensive research program. It's updated every year in various jurisdictions, different editions, in order to bring the most up-to-date vision of the global legal market possible. And the research that we conduct, is based on a number of factors. We receive feedback from over 300,000 clients worldwide. We seek submissions from law firms. We also conduct interviews with various leading private practice lawyers at those firms. And we've also got a great team of researchers with fantastic experience in the legal market. So definitely worth doing. The criteria we apply, there's a number of them, but simply put, I think the best way to describe it is, we look for practices that can demonstrate the most cutting edge and innovative advice to corporate counsel. And for the US guide, we really do focus on ranking the true elite of the US market, both in terms of firms and individual lawyers. I think that's best demonstrated by the fact that of the 300 firms we rank, more than half of them don't achieve more than 3 rankings across all the practice areas. It's not just about brand reputation, having a high profile in the media or anything like that. Only evidence of really outstanding work over the last 12 months ensures that you have a chance of being featured. Other guides to the US market seek to be exhaustive, covering as many markets as I can, whereas we are deliberately exclusive. We really look to focus on the true superstars of the profession. And if you are part of this group, I think clients know they really are dealing with the absolute best in the business, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you a little bit of an overview now in terms of our timeline of the research schedule, when do things start, sort of some key dates for you there as well. So in mid-August, so coming up now, as already mentioned, we always announce the new submission guidelines. So next week, do look out for those. What should you do at this point in time? You should, have a look at the new guidelines, double check, have we amended any ranking areas? Are there new ranking categories? We do really try to move with the market there and see what's, kind of move with them, any changes. So there will usually be at least a few changes year by year. So it's worth really having a look to make your submissions as relevant as possible according to the categories that we will actually be researching. Of course, this is also the time when we will be announcing the new submission deadline. So you can verify that. Again, it will usually be sort of around a similar time of the year, but it can also always vary by like a day or two. So So do check the deadline there. Obviously, that's also the place where you'll be able to download the submission templates and your referee spreadsheet. Again, the template, there won't be any major changes in the way that it looks, but we do make small updates year by year, not least because, there will be, again, amended sort of submission areas and so on. So it would be good if you could sort of download the most up-to-date submission template before you start filling it out and then sending it to us. And another thing that's quite important to note, particularly firms who might be submitting for the first time, or maybe you've got a new team member working on the submissions, if you do not have logins for our submission site, which is the place where you need to send the submissions to, then this is also the time to request them. I would highly recommend not requesting submission logins the day before the deadline or on deadline day, because as you can imagine, our admin team gets rather swamped during those days and might not be able to handle your query that quickly. So get ahead of the game and do it now. And then you've got a few months to go prepare your submissions. The submission deadline is always in mid-November. So you can see here that this year we've basically set it for the 17th of November. As just mentioned, please do not email your submission to us. We do not accept submissions via email. This is for data protection and confidentiality reasons, that it is not safe enough. Our submission site is a secure place where you can send your documents to, and this is where everything gets filed centrally as well, and the researchers have instant access to the relevant information for the practice areas that they are going to be researching. And maybe another important note for that submission deadline date is do send separate submissions and referee spreadsheets per practice area. So when you go into a submission site, you will see that inevitably you will have to select the according practice area and category for both those documents. So it's important that you kind of tailor-make it to what exists on our site. If you want more information, then do go visit our submission information page. So this is that link at the bottom of the slide. There is where you will find all those guidelines, the submission deadline, and when we start the research, you'll also find all our team information there, for example. So that is a very crucial link that you want to note down. Then, as we move along, December to February is our research period. During that time, the researchers will get in touch to arrange some interviews. We highly encourage you to proactively seek out interviews as well. We try and talk to as many firms as possible, but some researchers will not be able to have a conversation with each and every one of you. And as we will point out later on in the session as well, that is not necessarily a disadvantage. So not having an interview does not necessarily negatively impact your chances of being ranked. But if you feel that, in a particular practice area, there have been a lot of new developments, there have been some team changes, or you've really expanded into different kind of work areas or anything like that, you know best which areas you feel it's really important to have a conversation with us. So do reach out to the team. Like I said, our team information will become available at the start of research. So it'll be the beginning of December in our case. So you can see who is researching what, and you can proactively request an interview with the relevant researcher. In terms of the interviews themselves, we recommend that either the practice head or at least a partner who has a good knowledge and overview over the entire practice joins the call, simply because the research would like to get an overview not over just one individual person's practice, but the entire group's practice. Ideally, no more than 2 participants. In our experience, if there's more people on the calls don't tend to be quite as efficient anymore. Also considering that duration is usually around sort of half an hour. One last note for that time period from December to February is also that if you would like to make some updates in your submission, if there's a highlight matter that maybe previously was confidential that now has been made public. You can do that. If again, any team changes, any updates that you would like to make to a document that you sent at the submission deadline, it is still possible to do that during the research period. All you need to do is basically amend your submission document and re-upload it via the submission site, and it will automatically replace the older version. So the researcher will have that newer information readily available. And obviously we would also like to create our editorial commentary as up-to-date as possible. So it's also sort of in our interest to have the most up-to-date information there. All right, so moving along in the calendar, then February to May is sort of our editing period. So then the researchers will actually move on to researching other guides. So they will no longer be available. If you will have anything that you want to chat to us about, it would be in that case then me or Barnaby who you would need to get in touch with, because the researchers, as I say, will have moved on to other tasks and other guides and other research. But again, in terms of this note about the updates, you can still make specific types of updates during this editing period, not with regards to highlight matters, because of course the research is concluded, all the ranking decisions have been made and all of that. But for example, if there's any kind of major developments like mergers, or if there's any kind of high profile team moves, then we would still be able to, sort of quickly amend the editorial, add a sentence here or there to reflect that in the upcoming edition. Yes, and then basically the other obviously important date is the June date, which is when we always launch the new edition. After launch, you might have some queries about the new guide. We would ask you to please always send those via our FAQ page. This is a sort of central system that we have. If you go to our FAQ page, you'll see there's all the different relevant categories of types of questions, different forms you can fill in. And the benefit of that is that you will get an answer much more quickly, because then it will directly go to the relevant person who can answer your query as quickly as possible. And yeah, it's just a more efficient way of going about it. So please do, note that. Also very important link at the bottom of the page here. All right, so before I hand over to Barnaby again to talk a little bit more about sort of submission best practices and what makes a good submission, just a quick note now on some changes that we can already reveal to you that we are making for the new 2023 guide. We are introducing a few brand new rankings in the next guide. So very pleased to say that we will be adding a State Attorney General ranking category, which will fall under our government section. We're also making slight changes to our international trade section. So we will be adding a brand new ranking for CFIUS work, and also a new ranking for customs, which will include export control work as well, which means that the previous international trade ranking, which will still exist, which will focus a bit more narrowly, specifically on trade remedies and trade policy advice and WTO disputes as well. So a slight sort of reshuffle there. We're also going to be amending a few ranking categories for the energy, litigation, regulation and transaction categories, which fall under our industry focus section. We are going to be retitling our conventional power section into electric power, just to kind of reflect the more holistic type of advice that firms are giving in this space now, which kind of goes beyond just the conventional power sector. We're also going to be moving fintech. So again, there's no real change to the ranking category as such, but at the moment it sits under our media section, and we will be moving it to our finance section in case you look for it. Now you can find it under finance. Again, this is just to reflect the importance of the sort of financial regulatory advice within the sort of fintech space. And then a couple of other kind of new split rankings, one in the financial services regulation section, where we're now going to be differentiating between banking ranking category and a consumer finance category. So you can submit for either or both of those. And then similar for the project finance one, where previously we were differentiating between a borrower and a lender table, we will now be changing that to an infrastructure and PPP table alongside an energy and power ranking category. I'm also really pleased to announce a bit of a new initiative, which is some new spotlight sections. Just to explain briefly what those are, they are not new ranking categories as such, but the spotlights basically intend to list, not via tier, but just sort of a list of featured firms in particular niche areas that we are picking out. So for example, in our environment litigation section, we will be picking out climate litigation as a sort of niche focus, as a spotlight, where we will be kind of looking at the firms that are giving kind of that are showcasing the strongest practices in climate litigation. Similarly, in financial services regulation, there will be one for broker dealers, a spotlight for broker dealers. In fintech, we'll have a spotlight for crypto, and in government government relations, there'll be a spotlight for congressional investigations. So just to reassure you, this is not really a new ranking category as such. It's just a list of firms, a spotlight, which means that also you do not have to worry about sending a separate submission for these spotlights, but you should really be making it very clear in your submission for the main ranking table, for example, for environment litigation. If you have a specific climate litigation expertise and you feel like it should be included in the spotlight, do make that clear in your environment litigation submission by really telling us about your particular expertise and your work in that particular area. So I think these are all the changes that we will be making, but if you want to view the complete list of practice areas, including those changes, do again go to our submission information site, which is the same link that you saw a couple of slides ago, where you will find our submission guidelines and the deadlines and all of those. So yeah, I'd like to hand over again to Barnaby now, who will be telling you a little bit more about submission best practice.
Yeah. Hello again, everyone. So I just want to go through, as Anna says, some of the best practices when putting together your submissions over the next few months, basically how you can get them to us in the best possible condition, giving us all the information that our researchers need, so you can also attain to the best possible ranking for your practices. So I guess first things first would be, obviously, please separate your submissions by practice area. There are some areas where you'll be invited to provide joint submissions, but these will be indicated. Otherwise, do make sure they're separated and all submitted in the relevant practice area, even if there are areas that may somewhat overlap in terms of your team. That's fine, but please do make sure you put relevant submissions in for each section, so our researchers can see that you've done it. As you can imagine, it might be that you've put, I don't know, private equity work in an M&A submission, but the researcher for that area won't necessarily be able to find it if it's not in the relevant section. Again, please submit on time and via the correct channels, i.e. the submission site. As Anna mentioned, we can't accept submissions sent via email. Carrier pigeon, sadly, also out, which is very sad. More seriously, matter highlights. So the actual sort of bulk of the submission, I think it's key to point out here at this stage that the work highlights, the matter highlights you provide us form the real bulk of what our ranking decisions are based on. There are other factors, of course, at play, but this is really what you should be focusing on, providing as much information to us as you can. So they should fall within the research period that we'll be assessing, which will be November 2021 through to November 2022. They should summarise the key aspects of the deal or matter in as concise a fashion as you can. Obviously, please don't provide us with a short sentence, but also please don't provide us with 3 paragraphs, given that submissions we receive and the time constraints. Please provide individual case summaries rather than grouping work together, whether that's types of work or work for a client. We appreciate that your submission does not reflect all the work that a firm has done in a given practice area. You're obviously trying to provide your 20 best matters, which I guess in terms of the quota. But yeah, please just try to give us individual case summaries as best you can. Work can absolutely be ongoing. Obviously we appreciate that cases develop, particularly in understanding that's litigation or deals or things with regulatory agencies, it's absolutely fine to provide us with an ongoing case that maybe provided the previous year. So obviously the firm is still working on it, so it's still absolutely relevant. Again, please complete all the relevant fields in the template. So the dates, showing us the work's up to date, team members involved, so we can also make assessments on individual contributions and opposing parties as well. That's also really useful for us to sort of see the status that a deal has within the wider legal market. As I mentioned previously, we much appreciate that there'll be areas where our practice areas that we rank may not correspond to the way your teams are set up. So it's absolutely possible to include the same matter in more than one submission. Just make sure that you tailor the description to how it's relevant to the practice area. So it may be that to give an example, it may be that your team is handling the intellectual property elements of a major transaction. So the intellectual property team is doing one bit, and then the M&A team is doing another bit. Absolutely fine to include those in both, as long as you again explain how that's relevant to the given practice area. And once again, we recommend providing 20 matters. Please generally try to provide 20 matters, not significantly less, and certainly not significantly more. And as many of those can be confidential or publishable as you need to. We don't differentiate between that work. It just obviously depends on whether you'd like us to actually discuss that work publicly or not. So as I just mentioned on that confidentiality, please include non-publishable highlights and clients in the corresponding sections. It'll be quite clear there's a list in green and list in red. Confidential work highlights. So this is quite a common question that firms raise. Providing that you're able to disclose all significant complex aspects of a work of a matter, it will absolutely be treated the same from a ranking perspective as publishable highlights. We just, of course, won't then disclose any information about the client or the work in editorial content. But as we said, obviously we appreciate there are issues with this in terms of how much clients may be willing to have you published, but as long as you can provide us with as much of the significant information about the matter as possible, then there's absolutely no difference as far as we're concerned. On a similar note, in the matter summary sections, please make sure that all information you provide is clear for publication, because if it's in the publishable section, then researchers may choose to discuss it in their editorial content. And also, yes, please do distill this to a one-line synopsis of the work handled. The three matters that appear on the website in the publishable section will be one sentence. So ideally, please try and distill that to as concise a description as you can. Again, team information. So we will invite you to discuss arrivals and departures. We mean senior arrivals, so partner level or perhaps experienced senior associates or of counsel, and relevant to the practice area. So it may be that your team's made a hire of 12 partners to the real estate team. Please include that in your real estate submission. Please don't include that in your environmental litigation submission, for example. So we have three individual categories, which are leading individuals, next generation partners, rising stars. I will discuss the precise criteria for those in a little bit, but just bear in mind that you include the relevant lawyers in those relevant sections. So that will be cleared up later. And also, in the team information, please provide supporting evidence rather than just the name of the lawyer. So again, I will discuss in a little while what exactly that means.
So sorry, that's my slide, correct? Client referees. So again, here, please do submit in the correct format. It's very important here that you do not amend or add any fields, because obviously these spreadsheets that you send in are being dealt with centrally here by a client referee team in our internal systems, and they may not be able to read those if you make any kind of changes to the format of the spreadsheet. So do fill in all the fields that also say that they are obligatory to be filled in. Otherwise, we will not be able to really process those. Please also submit the client referee spreadsheets on time. I mean, ideally, please submit both your Word document submission and your client referees on time. But if you are pressed for time, then do prioritize the client referees in particular, because we just simply cannot, with the amount of spreadsheets and the amount of data that we have to process there, we cannot guarantee that client referees that we receive late will still be contacted. So if push comes to shove, send us the spreadsheet and then send us the Word document a little bit later on. And you can do that via our submission site, so that option is there. Again, similar, exactly the same, in fact, to our submission documents provide one referee spreadsheet per practice area. So you do have to kind of tailor make it to that particular area that you're submitting for. Very important as well is to point out that the referees ideally really should have worked with the firm over the last sort of 12, 18 months, otherwise we might sometimes get responses from the client that actually they haven't had any experience of the firm in recent times, and that might, not reflect that positively on you when it comes to ranking decisions and such. So, of course, you also should be seeking permission from your referee to be named as a referee. That's hopefully needless to say. You can put the referee forward for multiple practice areas. So despite the fact that you are providing separate spreadsheets per practice area, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be stating the same name multiple times. And just to reassure you that this person will then in fact only receive one single email from us with the feedback request. There will be multiple links in that email to separate feedback forms for that particular referee to fill out. If it is really multiple forms and the referee feels that that is too much to handle, in that case, we can also organize a telephone call with one of the researchers just to make that a little bit easier for the referee. But in the first instance, it will always be an email. So it will all be sort of electronic, and phone calls are not the norm, except for in these circumstances, if maybe a referee requests it, and if the researcher feels they need more feedback for a particular area. And then, you can provide unlimited number of client referees, so really put no restriction on the number there, and as many referees as you list and provide to us, we will contact all of them. Obviously, the more the better, because that will increase your chances that the referees will indeed respond, or a number of them will respond. So if we want to kind of maximize the referee response rate, then obviously it helps a lot to list a bunch of them. And again, also to not list the same referees year by year, because there is, unfortunately, this so-called referee fatigue, where some referees might feel they have just answered a questionnaire, even if perhaps it was a year ago, or maybe it wasn't for the Legal 500 or for a competitor directory. But so kind of changing up those names as much as you can also helps to kind of up those referee response rates. As I mentioned, client referees are emailed by us in the first instance. And of course, again, hopefully needless to say, the anonymity will always be preserved. So it is all entirely anonymous, confidential process, and we will never reveal who has given the feedback.
So back to me, a little bit about, again, some of the criteria that we apply in ranking firms and individuals. Again, I think it's probably one of the most frequently asked questions we receive. So as stated before, we have an evidence-based approach to ranking. So, the largest fact that we apply is the work presented in submission, which again, just to reiterate why it's so important to make sure that you give us the 20 matters that we'd like to see with all the appropriate detail filled in. That's the bulk, the building block effect of what the researcher is using to determine their rankings. There are other factors at play, of course. So a firm's track record in a practice area, obviously given the elite nature of this ranking, you need to see that the firm has been at the top of the market, doing complex, significant, innovative work for a decent period of time as the team. We do look for a firm's perception in the market based on discussion with peers as well as clients. The caliber of the firm's client base relative to the industries or sectors that they're operating in. whether the firm works for a number of international clients, things like that. A firm's market share, whether that's in terms of sort of volume of work or share of work it does for said major clients, for example. Bench strength, obviously we want to see that practices have standout senior members. We also want to make sure that they have bench strength perhaps at more junior levels as well. In terms of basically firm's bandwidth is something we look at too. We'd like to see team development. We can see that a firm continues to recruit strongly sort of laterally, or is also bringing people through and has a very good pipeline of talent. That's also obviously very, very encouraging for us to see. And indeed sector strengths. Obviously we have some sections that are industry focuses. We also have areas that are a bit more general. So for those industry focused sections, we want to see that the team, the practice is very well steeped in that sector. For more generalist sections, obviously we want to see that the firm has a wide range of sector expertise as well. This is, again, more in terms of individual rankings. Please, it also occurs to firm bios as well. Please avoid referencing awards and in terms of individuals' academic positions held or academic achievements held. We are, again, largely looking at a lawyer's track record in terms of work. We don't consider awards from other agencies or indeed academic positions for the rankings. So in terms of the lawyer categories we ranked, as I mentioned, we rank leading individuals, next generation partners, and rising stars. Recommended lawyers, I can see there was a question in the Q&A, which hopefully I can answer now. I'll get to that in just a moment, but yes. So leading individuals are effectively that. They are partners who are routinely fronting market leading work. This is demonstrated in the submission. They're active on a number of the firm's key mandates. It's reflected in client feedback. They're regularly mentioned by clients as being strong performers. And it may be reflected as well in terms of the market with other lawyers that we speak to, mentioning these lawyers as being active and strong players. Next generation partners is much the same, but it's those who've had generally around 3 to 5 years as a partner. Similarly, also either fronting or playing a key role in some real market leading work, and again, receiving that client recognition and that peer recognition too. And rising stars, which is a slightly newer section, is primarily senior associates and of counsel, effectively fairly senior lawyers below partner level, often on partner track, who again are playing a key role in work, regularly appearing in a key supporting role, and in some occasions leading work as well, who again perhaps are receiving client and peer feedback, and also that the, I suppose, firm leadership also considered to be key players for the future. Recommended lawyers, as we say here, is any individual mentioned in the editorial, whether that's firm write-ups, client testimonials, or if they're heads of practice or in the other key lawyers listing. So the other key lawyer listing will also include lawyers who are ranked. I think it's important to state that recommended lawyers are recommended, they are not ranked. So this is again, a very common question, it's already been asked, rightly so. Yes, it is not every lawyer in a submission, but it is any lawyer mentioned in our editorial context. So it may be that a lawyer's been mentioned in the editorial as having had a notable win or just been on the team, that counts as a recommendation. If they're mentioned in a client testimonial, that counts as a recommendation. If they're listed as a practice head, that counts as a recommendation. And again, if a lawyer is listed even without any other mentions in the editorial in the other key lawyers box, that counts as recommendation. Depending on the size of teams and how many lawyers are put forward in a submission, it may be a large proportion of lawyers put forward. Obviously, in the case of larger teams, we probably won't be mentioning everyone. It is generally based on researchers deciding whether a lawyer has played a key enough role in the submission just to be highlighted, at least have their name highlighted effectively, and to the potential benefit of clients as well. So again, to ensuring that lawyers can be ranked, I think our biggest piece of advice would be make sure that your key team members are reflected in matter highlights. Not just one or two. We appreciate there'll be lots of lawyers in your teams who will want to be recognised. It's generally best to focus on a smaller group of lawyers, as best you can, of course, rather than listing every single partner in a large team. And what we really need to see is that the lawyers you want to have ranked are reflected with a decent presence in the submission, and I say leading or at least playing a key role in your top matter highlights. That is the absolute best way to ensure that a lawyer has the best chance of being ranked. And it's also worth noting that when lawyers are ranked or recommended in Legal 500, similar with firms, there are logos available for you to download that you're obviously welcome to use in all your outward-facing communications.
Perfect. So just a really quick recap from me before we hand over to Wasim and Tim to discuss a bit more the commercial marketing side of things. So recap for me, what then really makes a good submission? Sell yourself. So really in your submission, try to capture what really differentiates you from your peers. You have to imagine that researchers read tons of these submission documents, and they might start sounding a little similar. So whatever you can do to kind of really make it clear what differentiates you from all the others, that is really key and really helpful. Focus on facts, try to avoid sort of the marketing speak as much as possible. Really, we want to hear about facts about your position. Tell us about revenue growth, if you like. Tell us about your new hires, the new clients, as we mentioned, is always a really good sign as well. Just those really, those kind of hard facts that support your statement that you consider yourself to have a strong practice in this area. As Barnaby already mentioned, really use those matter highlights wisely. Really tell us about your role. Don't just give it a description of the highlight, but tell us why do you consider it a highlight? Why was it important for the client? Why was it particularly complex? Why was it particularly innovative? Also talk about strategic growth plans for the practice. We always, as much as we look back to the past year, we do like to get that sense of looking forward into the future. How is the practice trying to develop? In which directions is it trying to go? Is there potential for growth there? Are there any concrete plans? Be prompt, as I mentioned earlier, try to get that interview request in early. But also crucially, don't be too upset or disheartened if you do not get an interview. Sometimes researchers just feel like they might not have enough time to talk to everyone, but also they might just feel like they have all the necessary information in the submission document already and don't feel like an interview is really necessary. If you do get an interview, prepare your partners for it. Again, researchers will really want that tangible information and honest feedback rather than some sort of, marketing puff, if we can say that. Another kind of quite important note that I would like to stress is please do also try to include talented women and minority lawyers in your submission. So D&I is really important to the Legal 500. And unfortunately, we can only work with the information that we get from you. So if you are not showing us who those kind of female partners are or other minority partners and other team members, then we won't be able to really feature them in our guide. So do make sure that you provide us some information there so we can make sure to kind of even out the balance there a little bit. Avoid jargon. So be aware that, yes, a lot of our researchers have multiple years of experience. Our team is quite a mixed background, but a lot of them will have studied law and have sort of an idea about the law and be aware of legal terms and so on. But others come from other backgrounds. So clear, simple language is really appreciated in the submission documents, and will make sure that really your point gets across to the researcher. And of course, again, and we've said this multiple times, but just make sure you submit on time. The later you send us the submission document, the less time the researchers have to actually thoroughly take all that information into account, and do submit it in the right format as well. Otherwise, you might miss out on some of the information displayed in the context of the actual editorial commentary on our website. And of course, again, if the referees are in the right format, again, they may not be contacted. So do ensure that you are using the correct templates there. Okay, so as I said, there will be a Q&A session at the end. I can see a lot of questions have already come in, so maybe you don't actually need these suggestions here. We've put some suggested questions, a list of suggested questions on the slide for you in case you can't think of any, but I think that's certainly not the case. So maybe the last thing I will say before I hand over to Wasim is after launch or anytime in between the research cycle, really, if you feel that you have a suggestion for a new ranking category, you feel like, oh, we're not accurately or adequately representing the market here, we're missing a kind of crucial ranking section, then we are very open to that feedback. So please do get in touch. Again, you will actually find a relevant section in our FAQs to do so. And then we will have the opportunity to kind of take a closer look at that and see if we do indeed want to include that, which is how, for example, the State Attorney General ranking came about in the upcoming edition. So yeah, I think that's all from us for now. So I'll hand over to Wasim.
So thank you, Anna and Barnaby. I hope you all found that useful, especially with the submissions for the US 2023 guide opening up soon. So as you know, the commercial team is completely independent from the editorial team. So I'd just like to take a few minutes just to let you know about the commercial opportunities that are available to you. So once you are ranked and editorially recommended via our impartial research as one of the leading firms in the United States, we in the commercial team would love to engage with you and understand more about your external marketing strategies and your business development objectives, and show you how you can use our platform as the world's largest referral website to get your messaging in front of our 6 billion users and come up with strategic campaigns to get your firm, your key partners, key practice areas in front of key clients and assist you with your marketing, messaging, and your business development efforts. So once you're ranked, firstly, we'd encourage all ranked firms to increase their visibility to potential clients by investing in a firm profile. By doing so, you give access to potential clients who are using the Legal 500 platform to refer work as they're using the platform to validate and verify the leading firm's capabilities. The Legal 500, as Anna pointed out earlier, we sit in a unique position in that our GC engagement on a daily basis through our variety of products and business divisions, such as the GC magazine, the GC Power List, the in-house lawyer, our research function, multiple surveys, and our variety of business divisions. We're constantly engaging with the corporate clients, so much so that the industry bodies have recognized the work that we do with corporate clients. So we have an alliance membership with the ACC, with the Association of Corporate Counsel, and also the International Bar Association. So David Burgess, who's our publishing director, sits on the board of the IBAs to help them grow their GC engagement. And we also work with these bodies around the world, delivering both digital and in-house events. The profile content is again driven by feedback from corporate counsel. And one piece of key feedback that they've given us is differentiation. They want to know and understand what differentiates your law firm to other ranked firms. And the profile allows you to do that. So with unlimited words, lawyer biographies, main work contacts, showcasing your diversity, presenting your mission statement, showcasing your client testimonials, your work highlights, key clients. This is all visible via a one-stop shop via your profile. And by not profiling, potential clients who are using the Legal 500 for primary research will not have access to your firm's visibility and will be redirected to competitors who do profile. Non-profiling firms also do not receive any editorial feedback once the rankings go live, and they have limited client testimonials, and they also do not have access to a tool that we provide for profiling firms called Convert Now, which converts your chamber submissions into a Legal 500 submission. So, we believe it's really important that you use the Legal 500 to give full visibility to potential clients who are wanting to validate your firm's capabilities. Also, as Anna mentioned, 6.1 million readers, being the largest legal referral website, we get 21.5 million page views. This is 2.3 times more than our nearest competitor. One thing that we also do at the Legal 500 is we actually provide you with analytics and statistics, so you can evaluate your return on investment. So if you are interested to learn how many readers you have seeing your rankings or looking at your profile, we can provide those for you. So please do get in touch if this is of interest. So we've launched a number of new initiatives. So new for 2023 is Meet the Team. Our Meet the Team feature, again, has been based on client feedback. Clients want to know who they're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis, which attorneys are the best point of contact for specific issues and queries. Meet the Team will allow you to develop the personality of your attorneys using bespoke content, accolades, interesting stories and anecdotes, giving clients full insights into the practice area capabilities. Meet the Teams will be included in your 2023 profile packaging, so we will encourage firms to utilize and maximize this new initiative. Also new for the US market this year is our US State Hub. As you know, the Legal 500 US rankings is a nationwide ranking. It's an elite, prestigious ranking. So any firm that are ranked is on a nationwide basis, showcasing the leading firms in the United States. But we will now have the opportunity for firms who are strong in a specific state or region to showcase themselves via the State Hub. We will be providing an editorial overview. So we'll be highlighting key trends in the legal market, such as dominant industries, key clients, also highlight specific industries and practice areas considered dominant in the particular state or region. We will then invite law firms to deliver bespoke content, such as doing business in the particular region, in this example, Texas, overview of the legal market, provide practice area write-ups, interview with key lawyers, and in certain circumstances, we may even allow some press release to go on the platform. So we're planning to launch this in Texas and California, with Florida to follow. And any firms who are on this webinar who are based in San Francisco and Houston, please do reach out to me, as I intend to visit next month. So I'd love to get some FaceTime with you and understand more about your activities and let you know more about what we're doing in the space. Also, the US market, we've been visible now for over 10 years. So we have a wealth of market intelligence. And outside the rankings and the directories, we're really keen to work with firms using data-driven insights and bespoke research, content collaboration, interviews. And as Anna mentioned earlier, the events portfolio, we are growing rapidly. Obviously the pandemic did present a little bit of an issue with face-to-face, but we're coming out of that now. So we're really keen to really drive this. And we'd love to engage with you guys in doing some events, both digitally, in person. Some of these events can be anything from forums, from dinner with corporate counsels, roundtables, a multitude of opportunities for thought leadership and knowledge and networking. We've launched also recently corporate conversations, which, using our ACC Alliance and our GC Powerless series, enables us to engage with corporate counsel, understand their thoughts and insights on topics that matter most, and get them to share those insights with private practice partners. We've also launched the Legal 500 Partner Perspectives, which is a brand new series of video interviews which provides private practice lawyers an opportunity to provide vital insights into their practice area and area of expertise. So we'll be promoting all of this via our platform on our channel, so reaching a huge international audience of legal professionals. So as mentioned, 6 million users to the Legal 500 platform. We have over 71,000 LinkedIn followers, 29,000 Twitter followers, and over the last 12 months, we've had over 3,000 corporate counsels attend webinars that we've hosted. So I encourage you to visit our event pages. So equally, we'd love to hear from you and understand your challenges and your desired messaging to the market, and come up with creative out-of-the-box ways to deliver these messages to the market. Your attorneys are the experts and thought leaders. We'd love to collaborate in a strategic and meaningful way in creating quality content that will deliver your messages to the national and global marketplace, drive the industry forward, and grow the Legal 500 brand in the United States. So I look forward to hearing from anyone out there in San Francisco and Houston, and working with everyone in the future. I'll now pass you on to my colleague, Tim Verbruge, who is spearheading another one of our new initiatives, which is Research Plus.
Thanks very much, Razzie. Thanks for that introduction. Hello to everybody. I'm just going to give you a very, very brief introduction to Research Plus, and we can always have a call in the next few weeks if you'd like to find out more information. Law firms often ask us, what is their firm's reputation in the market? We continually ask what the clients really think of the firms. And often we get the question as to how a practice or a firm in the United States compares to other firms within the market. Additionally, we're frequently asked, as we can see in the Q&A here, how can Legal 500 submissions be improved? Research Plus is a bespoke service that answers all these questions and more that we launched in the United States in 2020. So, Research Plus is conducted alongside the regular Legal 500 research process, namely the reports are developed over a longer period of time once the firm is submitted to us. It provides extensive and independent research into your firm's market reputation. We give you detailed and extensive feedback on the submissions that you provided to us. And most importantly, this work is undertaken and developed by the Legal 500 research team themselves. In each Research Plus report, we'll give you feedback on the firm's market reputation. We'll give you an understanding as to how the firm compares to peers and competitors, and you even have the option to outline to us who you'd like to be compared against or who you consider closest competitors within the US market. We'll provide you with an extensive overview of client comments and testimonials that we derive throughout our traditional research process, which we don't always publish in the live rankings tables, so you can get a full overview of the broad research that was undertaken. And then our research team will go through your submissions and go through your client referees and provide tips, support and advice as to how your submissions can be improved in the future. Finally, in recent years, we've changed Research Plus, whereby any firm that books Research Plus with us will receive their Research Plus report at least 1 week ahead of the Legal 500 US rankings being published, most likely in June next year. As well as issuing that report to you, as well as the research findings, we'll give you an embargoed understanding as to how the firm has been ranked in the forthcoming US 2023 guide. We'll also give you an understanding of the lawyers that have been recommended in the guide. And this works really well because it allows firms to make a cost-benefit analysis of the Research Plus findings together with the embargoed rankings that the firm has been recognised in. The other advantage for anybody who works in a BD or a marketing capacity is that it allows the firm who's booked Research Plus to communicate the ranking results under embargo to the wider partnership so that the firm is fully briefed and aware of the rankings a week ahead of time. And the other advantage, again, to anybody in a BD or marketing capacity, it allows you that precious time to get any PR, marketing, social media all ready in that week before launch, so that when the US rankings are published next year, you're able to simply press a couple of buttons and get the message and communicate it externally and internally to all your firm's shareholders. So, if you'd like to find out more about Research Plus, if your firm isn't already working with us on this, what I'd ask you to do is get in touch with me directly. You can either do that by dropping a message in the Q&A to say you'd like to find out more about Research Plus, and I'd be happy to arrange a call with you. You can also see my email address on the screen there. It's tim.verbruge@legal500.com. Or just simply find me on LinkedIn and we can arrange a time to speak. What we found is really effective is just to organise a quick 20 to 30 minute introductory call, and that'll allow me to explain to you how Research Plus works and answer any other questions that you may have. Thanks for listening, and I'll now hand you back over to Anna and to Barnaby for further questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you again, Wasim, as well. So I think without further ado, let's try and address some of those questions that have come in from the Q&A. One question that I saw, which regarded the referees, which I think is very relevant and we should clarify, is, do referees have to be clients? No, more often than not they are, but you can absolutely name anyone else as a referee as long as that person is able to give feedback about the services which your firm provides. That is absolutely fine.
Another question, which I think on referees, for this, I think it's for reasonable, is to do with the deadlines that are provided for referees to respond to us. Obviously, to encourage prompt feedback from referees, we will provide referees with a deadline, normally of 1 to 2 weeks. Referees who then don't respond will then be contacted again with a new deadline. We will accept feedback throughout the research process. As you can imagine, obviously we want to encourage prompt responses because obviously feedback that our researchers can see 3 weeks into the research is much more useful than feedback they receive 3 days before the deadline, in terms of taking it into account, both for firm and indeed individual rankings.
Absolutely. So I can see one here about the spotlight tables. Will they be ranking firms or individuals? Firms. So this will very much be focusing, like I said, just a list of the strongest practices in this particular niche area.
A couple of questions on matters and submissions, which I will think I'll answer both at once. So one about whether you can update us during the research period on matters with updates. You're more than welcome to highlight and note those changes. Also, yes, please do let the researcher know, so the researcher knows to go and double check that there have been developments. Another question about confidentiality, where if it's 99% of a matter is publishable, but only the demand or the deal total is confidential, should you highlight that in red, leave the rest, put it all in the confidential section? I think we would generally advise the former option. Please do try and give as much publishable information as you can. But obviously, if there are any elements that can't publish, just make very, very clear in red, and that, of course, then won't be at risk of being published.
If a referee, maybe back to the referees, is only listed in one category, but they speak to other categories, will that be attributed accordingly? I'm afraid the answer is no, which is why it is so crucial that if you feel a referee is relevant for more than one practice area, for multiple practice areas, you will need to list that person in those multiple spreadsheets that you are submitting to us to make sure that the referee then can provide the relevant feedback for those multiple areas. Or again, if it's too many and the referee feels like it's too much to answer for, then we can arrange a phone call.
Yes. Again, a lot of referee questions, understandably so. Can you get percentage stats prior to research closing on feedback so you can recontact referees? So unfortunately, as you can imagine, for reasons of data confidentiality, our researchers aren't able to give sort of live updates on numbers of responses or percentages. We'll be able to generally give an indication of whether the firm has received feedback or not, effectively, whether there's enough. But of course, we always recommend staying in touch with referees, asking if they've heard from us, making sure they check their their spam folders, things like that, to ensure that they do actually hear from us and they are able to respond. But as we mentioned, up until the end of our editorial deadline, we will welcome feedback that referees provide. So that's absolutely fine.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is a crucial point that Barnaby just made, because unfortunately sometimes our email does get blocked by firewalls or so on. So please do ask your referees to add our central email address, which is the one that we use to send them out, the editorial@legal500.com address, to the safe sender list, to ensure that it doesn't get lost anywhere and it does get through to them. And just another quick note on the referee response rate. Again, this is probably something that Tim will tell you when he talks to you about Research Plus, but that is one element of the Research Plus product, that you can get the more detailed information about response rates, a much more extensive list of all the feedback that you get within your Research Plus report.
Are referees asked about practice in general or specific attorneys? Broadly, the question, the feedback request comes in for a submission, so it's for a practice. But as part of the survey, the referee will also be asked if there are any specific lawyers they would like to mention. So the feedback is primarily aimed at the practice, but there is an opportunity to discuss individual laws. But you may put a referee with a certain lawyer in mind, that's absolutely fine, but they won't be invited specifically to as a referee for a given attorney. It will be for the firm as a whole.
Correct. I think I saw earlier something again about sort of referees in terms of our ranking decisions and how they are weighed compared to the submission document. Referees are important because I think it's good to get that feedback to support the submission, to again just kind of show evidence of that market visibility and so on. But most important, I would say, is absolutely your submission, and then within your submission, as we said multiple times, those work highlights. I think that is the absolute key, and then the referees are sort of it's a supporting function, really. I should also note, however, that this is with regards to the firm rankings. When it comes to the individual rankings, so the leading individuals, leading partners, the next generation partners, and the rising stars and the Hall of Fame, there we really are taking that client feedback into account as well, because it is very much about market visibility and peer review, that these are really the lawyers that are widely recognized as leading in their field. So slight differentiation there between the individual rankings and firm rankings in terms of the weight of the client feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Question on matters again in terms of how many to, so this question about earlier on when I mentioned important to list team contributions to matters. Do you need to list the entire team as pointed out? Yes, obviously there may sometimes be 20 or 30 lawyers on a team. I think the core team is what we're looking for, which I think applies to my point previously about individual lawyers you put forward. Again, it's best to stick to a core team, which may still be relatively sizable, but it's best to stick to a smaller group of lawyers rather than, as you say, spend time naming 30 different lawyers. I think not referee outreach, which normally begins fairly quickly after
the submission deadline. Obviously, there's a certain amount of time that our referee team needs to process the data, but you could, safe to say, a few weeks after the deadline, we'll be starting to contact them. Well, if it's to contact more than once, maybe that's another point that we haven't actually addressed. They will only be contacted more than once if we haven't heard back from them. So there will be one initial first mailer to everybody. If we have had responses from a particular referee, they will be taken off the list and they will never be recontacted again, because we obviously want to hassle referees as little as possible as well. But if we haven't heard back from them, they will be receiving a second, possibly also a third reminder to please provide some feedback.
And a similar question about whether they'll be contacted more than once if they're listed for multiple areas. No, every referee, anyone who's been listed as a legal funded referee receives one initial email, and as it says when they respond, they will no longer receive emails. But that first initial email will include every firm and or practice they've been asked to provide feedback for. So they won't receive one email for every time someone put down as a referee. Because of course, there'll be clients who are put down as referees, multiple firms, multiple practice areas. And again, we don't want to bother them any more than we absolutely need to. Okay, final question about the recommended lawyers. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, absolutely fine. So just to be clear, I'll move a bit closer in case I was muffled. Apologise for. To explain, recommended lawyers is anybody who is mentioned in the editorial content that Legal 500 publishes. So this includes lawyers who are listed in the practice head box, lawyers who are listed in the other key lawyers box, which should also constitute any lawyer mentioned in the editorial and any lawyer mentioned in client testimonials. That should really correspond. Lawyers will also be mentioned in the other key lawyers box who are ranked individually, but being ranked is somewhat separate from being recommended. So just to be clear, ranked lawyers are leading lawyers, next generation partners, and rising stars. Recommended lawyers is anybody else who features in the editorial content for a given practice area. Do we rank non-attorney policy advisors who work in government relations? The answer is no. We only rank lawyers. Obviously, if there are policy advisors within government relations teams, that would be a contributing factor to the ranking. But in terms of rankings, we do only feature qualified practicing attorneys.
Correct. Feel free to note it in your
Yeah.
submission. It will be some good supporting supporting note to your practice that you have these people available, but they will not be featured in the guide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we are also actually already 10 minutes over time, so let's see if we can field maybe one or two more questions. But anything else? Worth of work pilots, we've done that. Okay, well, is the slideshow to be made available on your website? Maybe that's a good one to end it on, actually. Yes, absolutely. So obviously, if you have to drop off by now, you won't hear my answer to this, unfortunately. But yes, you can very much go back over this entire presentation if you like. It is being recorded and it will be made available on our website. If you go to the events page, you should be able to find it relatively easily. So yes, and if you have any other questions, do get in touch with us either via the FAQs, or if it's something really urgent, you can also email us directly, but preferably do use those FAQs because it might also be a question that someone else in the team can answer more appropriately. And we really look forward to the next research cycle, and good luck with all your submissions coming up. And yeah, thanks for your time and thanks for tuning in.